Understanding how a simple reflex arc works also helps you understand more complex motor activity governed by the spinal cord. Such activity underlies complete, ongoing motor states like walking or swimming or bicycling. These elegant actions may seem far more complex than the crude, jerky reflexes, but they're really built on the same simple loops. However, unlike reflexes, these motor states can produce rhythmic, ongoing activity in the absence of motivating sensory input. For these reasons, neuronal networks underlying such states are called central pattern generators, or CPGs. We have quite a bit of evidence to suggest that simple spinal cord circuits are indeed capable of independently generating locomotion. For instance, consider the case of Mike the headless chicken. Mike was a young chicken living on a farm in 1945 when his owner decided that it was time for Mike to become dinner. The farmer chopped off Mike's head, but his axe blow managed to miss its mark, and Mike was left with an intact jugular vein, one ear, and a small intact stump of a brainstem. As luck would have it, this stump of brainstem was enough to preserve Mike's essential respiratory functions and allowed Mike to continue to breathe. But to the farmer's surprise, Mike could do much more than just breathe. He hopped off of the chopping block and toddled around in the yard. In a bizarre twist, the farmer was thrilled with this headless but surprisingly motile chicken, and he decided to keep Mike alive, feeding him with an eyedropper through what remained of his throat. Mike became something of a small-time celebrity, traveling the country and earning $4,500 a month, the equivalent of nearly $50,000 today. Mike was quite the phenomenon, but the truth is that Mike was not a particularly special chicken. Indeed, any chicken in a similar anatomical state would have been able to walk just as competently. Because chickens, like humans and all mammals, have their basic locomotion controlled by central pattern generators in the spinal cord. As Mike the headless chicken demonstrates, these central pattern generators are capable of carrying on locomotive activity even in the absence of input from the brain. Critically, Mike could also start and stop walking based on external sensory input, walking towards his owner's voice or away from a hot surface. As Mike's case demonstrates, external inputs can modulate the activity of a central pattern generator, slowing it down or speeding it up, or commanding the pattern generator to start or stop running. Indeed, in chickens and humans with intact cortex, central pattern generators can be heavily modulated by higher cortical activity, such as a desire to stand still or to sprint along a track. But such input is evidently not necessary to central pattern generation. Indeed, evidence suggests that not even the full spinal cord is needed to cause rhythmic locomotion. This evidence comes from studies of quadriplegics whose spinal cords are transected at the neck. Despite total inability to move any bodily muscles, if a quadriplegic's hips are extended, spontaneous and uncontrollable rhythmic movements, including flexion and extension of the legs, can be seen, as if the hip extension triggers a locomotive CPG deep in the spinal cord. Along the same lines, if you ever hold a baby upright and move her over a horizontal surface, you may see rhythmic stepping movements, even though she remains utterly incapable of walking on her own. Granted, such rhythmic stepping movements in babies involve sensory inputs as well, but the motor circuitry defining these movements is located in the spinal cord. As babies who have yet to learn to walk are not yet controlling locomotive behavior with commands from higher motor centers. This second example suggests that the basic neuronal circuitry for rhythmic motor movement is not something we need to learn, we appear to be born with it. Further evidence that many motor functions can persist without cortex comes from a tragic birth defect in humans called anencephaly. Anencephalic babies are born without a cerebral cortex. These babies don't typically live long, but they demonstrate a number of reflexive motor behaviors, such as grasping an object if it's placed in their hand.